a good definition of sanity in some real sense, and I don't mean this in a trivial or a coy way, is that you're saying if you can behave well enough that other people can stand having you around so that they can provide you with corrective feedback. And if you're sane enough so that other people can stand having you around, they'll reward you when you deserve to be rewarded, and they'll punish you when you deserve to be punished. And all you need to do is pay really careful attention to that feedback, and you'll be sane and properly situated. Now, that can go wrong if the entire social community takes a pathological turn, and that makes things more complicated. And that does happen from time to time, but generally speaking, you have to be surrounded by people. And so we could walk through that. Very few people can function effectively without an intimate relationship. That's because you don't have anybody who's monitoring you over the medium to long run if you don't have an intimate relationship. And so how can you organize yourself intelligibly and sanely without the medium to long-term orientation? You just can't do it. And how can you tell if you're being a civilized human being if you're not bouncing your behavior off someone really close to you continually? You can't.
That's right.
You need the intimate relationship. You need the family, parents and siblings, children, for the same reason. And you need friends. You talk a lot in your book about friends, and you have some good practical advice, I would say, and this would be something for us usefully to concentrate on, I would say, as you talk about how people can make friends, because people really don't know. And so maybe you could share some of that with people who are watching and listening.
Yeah, I think there's two tracks I want to follow. And one, we can circle back to this conversation we're having right now. Evolutionarily, I think we're running a fantastic experiment, because for all of the history of mankind, nobody could sit in and listen to you and I dialoguing this way unless they were in physical proximity, which that physical proximity is a form of intimacy. We're all in the same room, sharing the same meal, sharing the same fire. And now we've created this bizarre intimacy where people can drive to work for 2 hours, one way, and they can go on road trips, but they're sitting by the fire with us, right? And so there's this intellectual intimacy that's happening, but I think our bodies are hollering at us. When it comes to making friends, I spent a season, I was 2 inches from my wife, and I was 2,000 miles away from her. And I shared a bed with a woman that I loved, and I was profoundly lonely. And I always thought lonely was proximal, right? You have nobody around you. And so I think it's proximal and it's emotional. I mastered the art of being alone. I'm an introvert by nature, just a nerd. I love to read my books. And so I mastered the art of being alone in a crowded room. I can wave and smile and be completely on my own planet. And that has a physiological and a spiritual cost to it. And so what I had to stop doing was beating myself up for having a lack of character, or I'm a failure. No, I needed to learn a new set of skills. And that skill set was making friends. When you're a child, when you're in middle school, when you're in high school, when you're in university, everything is geared towards community. You play games together, you don't play games together. It's all about doing things together. And then you cross that graduation stage, or you get out of the army, and the world looks at you and says, it's now you versus everybody. And so I think we just have to say, hey, I don't have the skill set, so what do I got to do? I think we overthink it. I think hospitality, going first, asking people over to your house, to your events, to your thing, and just go first and get over yourself. Look at it as you just got to quit smoking at some point. I just got to make friends at some point. I'm going to go first. People are going to say no. They're going to challenge you. You're going to find out that nobody wants to be around you. So you got to go to the mirror and ask yourself, what is it about me that I'm projecting in the world that nobody wants to spend time with me? It really challenges, but man, just let's stop over pathologizing it. Let's just go be weird. Go be weird and be hospitable. Go first. Yeah, well, you said that you're an introvert, and the thing about introverts is they often have to learn consciously how to socialize, right? Because extroverts, that's right.
Well, they're tilted so hard in that direction, it just comes naturally to them. We could walk through some of the initial stages in forming relationships in a very behavioral manner, because people might find that useful. So Benjamin Franklin said that one of the things you could do when you first moved into a neighborhood was to ask one of your immediate neighbors for a very small favor.
Right.
And the reason for that is because it gets the reciprocal trade moving in the proper direction. So people like to be of service to other people. And if you ask someone to do you a very small favor, then you put yourself in their debt. And then you can also reciprocate. So you allow them to show themselves in their best light because you allow them to easily indicate that they're positive and friendly and willing to do something for someone else. And they're very happy about that if you get it right. And then you're in their debt, so you can offer to do them a favor.
But we got to be we have to be very honest about how countercultural that is now, because overnight, just with a snap of the finger, we don't ask our neighbor for a cup of sugar anymore, man. We just get on Amazon Prime and it shows up at our house, or we don't ask a friend to drive us to the airport anymore. We just click a button on our cell phone and somebody comes and picks us up. And overnight, I think we have shifted this idea from I'm going to honor you and allow you to be of service to me, which is a gift. And I'm going to allow my needs to be heard out loud. I need some sugar. I need an egg. I need a ride. I need you to help me move, right? The worst call. We've suddenly become, we think we're a burden, Dr. Peterson. We think we are a burden to our friends and neighbors. And burdensomeness, perceived burdensomeness, the idea that people are better off without me, that's one of the pillars of suicidal ideation. And our entire civilization has run that way. We consider ourselves a burden. And so the very act of asking a neighbor to help with something is an act of defiance in our current era. Go for it, man. You want to be crazy and you want to be countercultural? Ask somebody to help you with something. What a gift.
Well, you can also do things. If you move to a new neighborhood, for example, there'll be a local cafe somewhere. You can go there once a week for like several months or twice a week at a regular time. And you can introduce yourself to the owner and you can tell them that you've moved into the neighborhood, and you can introduce yourself to the waiters and the waitresses, and you can become a known fixture there, and you'll start to feel comfortable there. And then you'll be able to start to have conversations with people there. And you can do the same thing with people at your local store. You have to, and I had clients who didn't even know how to introduce themselves properly, which can be a real impediment for people. So, you say to someone, well, you look them in the eye because then you're watching their face and then you can see how they're reacting, and your unconscious socialization abilities will kick in if you attend to the right cues. You say, hello there, I'm Jordan Peterson. I just moved into the neighborhood. I'm going to be dropping into your store pretty often. I thought I'd introduce myself. And then you stick out your hand and you look at them and you make sure that you're paying attention to them and not you. And you say, what's your name? And everyone responds positively to that. And maybe if they don't, then it's time to find a different corner store.
Right.
And then you try to remember their name. But if you don't, you say, we met the other day, but I'm terrible with names. I forgot your name. Could you tell me again? And if you do that, then, that little corner store, then it's not completely foreign territory and you're not alienated from it. You're going to start to feel comfortable. And the same thing is true for this place you might go every week. You have to establish these routines of socialization, because otherwise you're in enemy territory, at least unknown territory. And that's extremely hard on you physiologically, because you don't know if you're surrounded by friends or foe, eh? And so it's the same with your neighbors.
You are proposing an act of revolution by going to a new environment and sticking out your hand and saying, hi, my name is John. What is your name? And actually listening to the response. That is a revolutionary act. That's a transformative. I take my son, he's 12. And so I've started being highly intentional about our relationship, because I'm in the early stages of raising what is soon to be released in the wild, a grown man. And so we have breakfast every Tuesday at this establishment here in the States called Waffle House. It's just a chain diner. And one of the revolutionary acts I'm trying to teach him is the act of radical generosity. And I struggle with sometimes basic, hi, my name is. And so the way I began doing this, the Waffle House opened in our small town outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I started over tipping in a significant way because nobody wants to be working the 6 a.m. shift on a Tuesday at a Waffle House. And so I told my son, hey, we're going to take care of these waitresses. They're awesome. They bring us coffee. They bring us juice. They're lovely. And within a few months, they know our order when we get there. They are smiling when we walk in, and it has absolutely transitioned our social interaction. Now I look forward to spending time with my son, but also hanging out with these great waitresses and asking about their cool tattoos, right? But it's just going first. It's just going first, going first, going first.
Yeah, well, that emphasis on somewhat excess generosity in those situations is extremely useful too, because it doesn't take that much to distinguish yourself on the attentional front from the run-of-the-mill customer. And you only need, imagine this, you probably only need between 10, maybe under 10 places to go in your social community in order to be well situated. And so you said, is it every week you do this with your son?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we could do some quick arithmetic around that. How long in all does that whole event take?
By the time we sit down and get him to school late every Tuesday, it's probably a grand total of 45 minutes.
Okay, and what about travel time?
It's probably 20 minutes there. So it's about an hour and a half.
Okay, so it's 90 minutes.
Full circle.
It's 90 minutes, and that's once a week?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then you figure you're awake for about 16 hours a day. And of that awake time, say 12 hours is useful for doing the sorts of things that you're doing with your son, because you're going to spend 4 hours in just self-maintenance, right? So let's say 12 hours. 90 minutes is about approximately 1/10 of that. We'll just use that as an approximation for easy mathematics. So you've fixed 10% of one day, and there's 7 days. And so that's basically 3% of your life you've fixed by doing that. And that means you'd only have to fix 30 more things and you'd have fixed 100% of your life. Well, you tell a story in your book about one of your friends who was talking about exercise and health, and he said to you, change the things you do every day. The things that repeat, those are your life. That's the routine around which your life is built. People very much overvalue special occasions and vacations and that sort of thing, and they don't pay nearly enough attention to the kind of thing you're doing with your son. It's like that's once a week. You might be able to do that for years. It's 3% of your life. If you get that perfect, now you've got 3% taken care of, and you can move to the next small piece and do the same thing. You do that with some friends, and you do that with your wife, for example, a couple of times a week for a couple of hour sessions. One of the things I found in my practice was that this is useful for people who are trying to embark on an intimate relationship, is you need to talk to your wife about the domestic economy and the practicalities of your life together for about 90 minutes a week. And you need to date at least once a week for that length of time, or maybe twice if you can manage that. And if you don't do that, you will become isolated and lonely, and you'll develop a backlog of communication. And if you don't fix that, you'll end up divorced, and then you'll be fixing it for the rest of your life.